All right. So can you guys see my screen with the presentation up?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So I just realized I have a terrible username on this. Oh Lord. So I'm Eric Sanchez. I'm with NAVAIR. I have Christine Roberts as well with us. So we're going to talk a little bit about the company, what we do. We both come from the Cherry Point location, so we'll talk a little bit about that, and we're going to go over internships and full-time positions. So I interned at NAVAIR from May to August of 2018. I graduated that following semester. Here from NC State, so I used to go to all these AAA meetings as well. So back then they were in person. So I've been full time at NAVAIR since February of 2019. Took a month or so for HR to process everything after graduating in December, but it's all good. So like I said, back then I was an AIAA, ASME. I used to be an MAE ambassador. I did marching band, all kinds of other stuff, and threw on some pictures of me climbing on top of an 860 and inside the cockpit of one that we actually keep at our local community college. This one's been decommissioned. It was in a mishap years ago. This, I believe, is a Romeo series, and I believe it's actually the 5th production one. So it's pretty old. But yeah, we just keep it out as an engineering asset at the college. And I'll move on to Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine. I didn't go to NC State, but I married a Wolfpack, so I'm part of the family. I graduated in May of 2007 from Virginia Tech with a bachelor's in material science and engineering. After that, I went directly to Duke, got my master's in mechanical engineering and material science, and then I went directly to NAVAIR. So I've basically just moved my way south throughout my career. I've now been with NAVAIR going on 11 years. I've been in different positions every 2 to 3 years. This picture here, I started out in composites in the materials lab. Then I went into a production support role where I was sort of a team lead. I've done some rotations as fleet support team leaders, which we're going to talk a little bit about fleet support and production support and the difference. And then I got into management. I actually managed the young engineers for a few years and did all the recruiting events. Then I started managing just a typical engineering team. And then now I'm the division director for AMSREL, which is our logo in the bottom right. So it's Advanced Measurement Services Reverse Engineering Labs. We basically deal with precision measurement, defining inspection plans for manufactured components. We provide machine shop support. We do a lot of 3D modeling, a lot of stuff in CATIA. So it's a pretty diverse group. I just started that position in the fall of 2019, so it's been less than a year. So definitely still learning, and coming from a background in composites is absolutely different. One of the interesting things about NAVAIR is you can spend your whole career with NAVAIR in one location and do completely different things. So in 11 years, I've probably had 5 or 6 different positions, gone from highly technical in the lab all the way up to a management type role. So it definitely keeps things interesting. And if you want opportunities to do various positions and explore engineering, that opportunity is there. All right, so a little bit about NAVAIR. It is headquartered out of Patuxent River, Maryland. As Eric said, we're from the Cherry Point, North Carolina location, which is on the coast of North Carolina, about halfway between Wilmington and the Outer Banks, if you're familiar. And we're going to talk location later, and Eric put in a nice map to kind of show you. But ultimately, our mission is supporting the warfighter. So any weapon system or aircraft that is in the Naval or Marine Corps inventory is something that NAVAIR engineers designs and sustained. And that includes everything CONUS and OCONUS. So if we have forward deployed aircraft in Afghanistan or Japan, we support those as well. Any of the squadrons that are overseas. So at any given time, a NAVAIR engineer could be supporting someone right down the street or on the other side of the world. I actually just had 2 employees that got back from Japan. They were deployed for 2 months performing laser tracker on V-22 and H-53, and that was right in the height of COVID. So there's definitely a lot of interesting challenges, especially now, but it's always interesting when you can support people elsewhere and get to travel as well. So this is a map showing our command locations. Because we are based with the Navy, there's a lot of coastal opportunities. Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point is one of the largest Marine Corps air stations. Right near us is also New River, so there's just a lot of military activity where we are. Each site on this map has a specialty. So Cherry Point, we're the vertical lift center of excellence. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. I said Pax River is the headquarters. They deal a lot also in the beginning of the aircraft. So if you're looking at designing the aircraft, the beginning of its life cycle, Pax River is doing a little bit more of that there. Lakehurst specializes in support equipment and arrested takeoff. North Island is one of our sister depots, and depot is just what we call the maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities. They specialize in like F-18 primarily and E-2C2. And then Jacksonville is the third big depot of NAVAIR, and they deal P-8s, a little bit of F-18. They do a lot of engines and manufacturing. And then on the sides, you can see everything else that we support. But like I said, it's really everything, weapon system and aircraft for all Naval and Marine Corps systems. UAVs are also a really big up and coming area. Jacksonville is one of our UAV specialty sites, so that's a big growth area for us. All right, so this breaks out all of the fleet readiness centers, which are the depots that I was speaking about. So it gets really confusing, but Eric and I work at Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point for NAVAIR. We are government civilians, but part of the entity at Cherry Point is called the Fleet Readiness Center. It's a maintenance and repair overhaul facility, and it's called a D level or depot level because it's the highest level of maintenance for the Marines and sailors. At the squadrons or their lowest unit level, that's basically the O level organizational level. It's the lowest level of maintenance. So there they might be able to take off a panel of an aircraft that's damaged or do some light surface repair. If they can't repair it at their level, they're taking that panel off and taking it to the I level or intermediate level and just trading the panel in for a new one. If there's none there or it's something that the I level can't handle, they send it to the depot. So the depot is the highest level of maintenance. That's where we're taking a panel that's severely damaged and curing prepreg in an autoclave, making them a new panel and sending it back. Or doing something, really intensive. We also bring aircraft in, so like V-22s are overhauled at Cherry Point, and we completely tear them down, repair everything, put it back together, do a functional check flight, and then send it out. A V-22 can be at our depot anywhere from like 150 days up to a couple of years, depending on the damage. So you can see it's very intensive repairs that we're doing at our facility. A lot of people equate it to a dealership or car maintenance. All the aircraft have maintenance cycles and maintenance intervals, so you have to get your oil in your car changed every 5,000 miles. Aircraft have similar intervals, and they're coming to us in a lot of times to get that maintenance complete. This basically breaks out all of the I and D level facilities for NAVAIR and then what each of them specialize in.
All right, so here's a kind of a quick list of some of the different products we have. So we kind of divided up into different systems. So we have the fixed wing aircraft, so F-22s, F-18s, F-35s. Of course, that's the non vertical lift versions. We have rotorcraft like the H-53, H-60, H-1s, V-22s. Your helicopter, more vertical lift kind of weapons. Different kinds of missiles and whatnot. Like on H-60s, we'll use Hellfire missiles and whatnot. We have unmanned aircraft like MQ-8 Fire Scouts, RQ-21 Blackjack, MQ-25s, which I think are the most recent ones. And we have systems like avionics and all the support equipment that go with all of these aircraft. And include a couple of pictures of a couple different of all the aircraft we have. This isn't every single one. We also support some of the other programs, so we'll help with the C-130s as well. Sometimes the Air Force relies on help with us for that, or we also work sometimes with the Army or the Coast Guard or the I already said Air Force and whatnot. So a little bit more on FRCs. We've already talked about it a little bit, but ours specifically is the Vertical Lift Center. So we specialize in the helicopters, H-60s, H-53s, the V-22s, and F-35 vertical lift, as well as a couple other miscellaneous stuff. We do have C-130s. We have a little bit of F-18. So it is a little bit of a hodgepodge, but primarily we're vertical lift. And currently we're under MAO, which is a mission-aligned organization. Christine, if you want to talk a little bit more about the differences between that.
Sure. So we went to this reorganization in October of last year, and it basically split us up so that we can better support our customers. So each of the fleet support teams split up by platform. So like Eric right now supporting H-60 is part of the H-60 fleet support team. And then our side, the production side, we're on maintenance, repair, and overhaul engineering. Prior to October, we were in a competency aligned organization. So I used to be a supervisor over subsystems. And on my team, I had engineers that supported H1, H53, H60, and all of the subsystems of those aircraft. So people that were experts in landing gear or people that were experts in ejection seats or canopies. So we were based by competencies, not based by teams. Now we're all supporting our team and we're all aligned. So theoretically, if we were all in the office, the entire H60 engineering team would be in one building. So if Eric had a question about structures, the H60 structures engineer would be just down the hall. So it was supposed to make us more agile, where we could move people around if needed. So if there was a spike in drives work and Eric needed a bunch of help, we could move some structures engineers over, best to support our customers. Of course, COVID has kind of changed that because some people are in the office, some people aren't. But the concept is still there, trying to align us best to fit our customers. On our side, we support the depot at Cherry Point. So we're structured, basically just to support them. We have production support engineers that go to each shop and their specialty is serving them. So instead of having like an H60 drives engineer, we have a production support engineer for the hydraulic shop, and they're going to support any component that comes through that shop. And so this shows just some of the organizational structure of what it looks like under the mission alignment. So platform, you could assume like that's like H60, H53, and then you're breaking it down into the subsystems that compose that aircraft. So you have lead engineers serving in each of these roles, as well as junior engineers reporting up through them. So the good thing is they're all supporting the same mission. Like I said, you can move personnel around. The other aspect, so this is really engineering focused, but there's a lot of support like logisticians and technical data that all specialize in that same platform. So mission alignment is bringing them all together. All right, so this is our location. So as I said, we're halfway on the coast. Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point is in Havelock. Most people don't live in Havelock whenever they come to work at Cherry Point. They live in about a 30-minute radius around Havelock. So Eric and I both live on the Moorhead Atlantic Beach side. A lot of people will live in New Bern. That's where the closest airport is. As you can see from Raleigh, about 2 hours and 20 minutes. Totally doable to drive back to a basketball game, like to and from in one night. We've done that, or football. So it's really easy. A lot of people will even just go to Raleigh just to go to Crabtree. But definitely our area is great if you like outdoors activities. Not only is there the beach, but there's a lot of forests. A lot of people do like off-road dirt biking, fishing, mountain biking. It's a really moderate climate, so it's great for the outdoors, kayaking, surfing, all that stuff. So, and cost of living is really low.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little about what I do. So you can maybe see it on my shirt. I'm part of the H60 FST, so I support the MH60 Seahawk. M for multi-mission, H for helicopter, 60 is the number. We've serviced both the Romeo and Sierra models, which are some of the newer versions. It's very similar to the Black Hawk, if you all know the Black Hawk, or it's similar to what the Coast Guard uses for the search and rescue. So we also do search and rescue. We'll do sweeps for submarines, for mines. We'll transport troops. We'll do vertical replenishment, which just means carrying cargo. We can attack. You can put Hellfire missiles on them, for instance, and guns. So very similar to what the Army, Air Force, and Coast Guard use. So we do a lot of work, in between us. The Army has the most of this kind of helicopter, so they put a lot of the money in for the research and whatnot. We also do our fair share, and we have a lot of the same issues. Sometimes there's different issues. For instance, we face a lot more corrosion problems being near the water than the Army does, but the Coast Guard also shares in those concerns. So sometimes we try to cooperate on ideas, and we also sell a lot of aircraft to the foreign militaries. So this past November, I got to go to Australia. We don't have a squadron in Australia, but the Australian government buys H60s from us. They currently have 24, and I think they plan on buying, I can't remember how many, but they're going to buy more. So we support their military. They invite us over. We tell them about all the problems we've solved, any issues we've seen. They tell us about their issues. We try to bring them up to speed so we're all on the same page. And for my platform specifically, we support Spain as well. Greece plans on buying some. I think Germany wants to buy some. India is buying 24. Saudi Arabia has a handful now. I think they're up to 6 maybe. And it's just growing. And if it wasn't for COVID, that's great for travel. I would have gone to Spain this year and possibly Australia again. Hopefully I get to do that sometime soon. But if you like travel, we're able to do that here, which is really nice. As well as just visiting our squadrons. We have squadrons in Japan and Guam and Hawaii. Haven't gotten to go there yet, but someday. And then more to the specifics of what I work on, I am a drive systems and diagnostics engineer, pretty much what Christine's husband does, actually. We used to sit next to each other. So I work on gearboxes, gears, bearings, drive shafts, bushings, whatever. Basically, the things that connect the engine to the rotors, which are 2 other teams. We all fall under propulsion under that organizational chart we showed earlier. So we'll do stuff like engineering investigations, which means if a part goes bad in the fleet, we'll ship it over to our site, we'll inspect it, we'll tear it down, we'll try to figure out what went wrong and try to prevent it. We'll do mishap investigations. If an aircraft goes down, try to figure out why it happened and try to prevent it, very similar to the engineering investigations. We'll do dispositions, meaning maybe someone accidentally hit a gearbox with a hammer and they went 10 thousandths beyond their repairable limit per the book. Well, maybe I can do an FEA analysis, or maybe I can look at the blueprint of the housing and give them a little bit of extra wiggle room on their repair and get their aircraft flying, which is really important for my team because our aircraft is deployed very often out at sea, either on aircraft carriers or destroyers. We're one of the few aircraft that can fit on a destroyer. The only problem with that is sometimes the destroyers will go on missions alone without a carrier, so they don't get high-level support from carriers. They don't get the storage space for extra parts from carriers. So sometimes you have to get really creative when we're trying to give them repair so they can finish their mission without having to divert back to base. And we'll do a lot of technical manual changes, so helping them with repair instructions or different kinds of procedures. Sometimes we find errors, sometimes the fleet will find the errors and they can submit those to us to fix. We'll do a little bit of R&D. That's mainly what headquarters and PAX does, but PAX doesn't really get their hands on the part and interact with the fleet like we do, so we kind of cooperate with them on that. Foreign military support, like I said before, we support a lot of different countries that buy aircraft from us, and I do some vibrations and parametric data analysis. That's where I get the diagnostics from in drive systems and diagnostics. So we have accelerometers that we use to try to determine if gears or bearings are faulty. We have temperature sensors, pressure sensors, all that kind of stuff, so I can diagnose the gearbox to say, hey, your temperature's gone really high and maybe you have some vibration signature, so maybe something's wrong with the gear in there or something. And I'm going to show you a quick example here. So here's kind of a quick snippet of our main transmission in an X60. So we have the main module here. The shaft goes up to the main rotor head. We have input modules that connect to our two engines. And so what happened was a squadron reported that they had a chip light for their main gearbox. Now what that means is each gearbox has its own little chip detector. It's basically like a screen with a magnet on it that oil flows through. And if enough metal chips are in that oil from the bearings or gears or whatever, it'll get stuck on that magnet and complete a circuit. If it completes that circuit, it indicates a light, and that means the pilots have to mission abort. They have to, try to land as soon as they can, because it could mean loss of drive, which means you're going to crash. But the problem is that main gearbox is really expensive to replace, and it takes a lot of time to get out of there and put a new one in. And because our main transmission shares an oil system, so both input modules, both accessory modules, and the main share oil between them, it's possible for those metal chips to kind of skip a chip detector and get caught downstream. So we looked at the vibration data of these gearboxes and all the different accelerometers. This isn't all of it. This is just a quick snippet. This first image here is from what we call MDAN. We use a lot of acronyms here, sorry. It's a Mechanical Diagnostics Analysis Navy. And basically you can see there's a lot of blue triangles. Each one of those is a data point or data acquisition. And you'll see it's in chronological order. And here at the very end, they suddenly spike up. We call these conditioned indicators. And as they shoot up, it's kind of like a high energy in your bearing or gear or whatever. And so that's how we know something probably went wrong there, because it's about 30 times the energy level of what it should be. Then on the bottom, we do an FFT analysis, a fast Fourier transform, where we take the vibration data, so your regular time waveform, convert it to a frequency spectrum. And this is something you don't really learn in class. And I'm an aerospace engineer. I had to learn this on the job, but bearing defects will have special frequencies. So if you have a chip on the inner race versus a chip on the outer race versus a ball damage, it'll show up as different frequencies. And that's why we map it with these like vertical lines. So then we tore down the gearbox, which was a whole lot of fun. It's one of my favorite parts, is actually get my hands dirty. And I was able to find damage on the bearing. I actually have, bear with me. So I pulled this bearing out of an input module, took it apart, and you probably can't see on this webcam. I don't really gonna show up well, but that ball is missing a lot of material from what we call spalling damage. Took that to materials lab, looked at it under a microscope. We also found some damaged rollers from a bearing in the accessory module. And so we concluded that there's actually the accessory and input module causing chips that then flow down into the main gearbox. So we had them replace those, keep flying with the same main gearbox, which we found out later did not have a second chip light. So we saved them all the money, time, and potentially have needed another mission abort if they just replaced the main and their other gearboxes had continued to chip. So that's one of the big things we've been trying to do recently. I guess another quick example is one I'm currently working on. And this one's, we've got a disconnect shaft for our tail gearbox. So this connects to one part of our tail. There's another one that looks similar that connects, that allows our tail to fold and take up less space on the gearbox. But the bearing that's inside this piece failed. They actually didn't notice it in flight. They were doing a post-flight check, and they found some cage material from the bearing inside the aircraft itself. Wait, where'd this come from? And then they start finding ball bearings, and finally they realized their bearing had been shot. So now we're trying to figure out why it happened. So we're still in the progress of doing that.
All right, so a little bit about careers at NAVAIR. As I said, there's a lot of support that goes into engineering and just supporting these aircraft. So we do hire logisticians, tech data analysts, artisans, so the mechanics that actually support the aircraft and do the repairs, as well as engineering technicians. A lot of times they have prior military service and they bring a lot of experience to the position. We hire a wide variety of engineering disciplines at NAVAIR, so everything from aerospace mechanical, which really would be what you guys, your group comprised of, but also chemical, computer, industrial, and materials. We even have a couple like biomeds, so really just an engineering degree. We need people that can solve problems and use critical thinking skills. 800 to 900 engineers and growing. I've heard somewhere like probably 300 engineers are going to be hired in the next year or two. So it's definitely a really big growing field. We're getting F-35, so we definitely need to increase to support that. There's something crazy like $10 billion of MILCON projects going in at Cherry Point for the F-35 squadrons. That all kicked off here recently. So we have to grow as the squadrons grow. So benefits, there are definitely a lot of benefits to working for the federal government. As I mentioned, we are DoD civilians. We definitely get the question a lot of times if we're contractors or civilian. Because we're civilians, we have a lot of stability. And we get benefits similar to the military. So things like our healthcare, eye care, dental, it's all very good. I always use the example, although you probably can't relate to it, but for both my kids, the total cost to have babies was like the copay, which is $25. So you can think of all the appointments and surgeries and all that goes into it, and it's $25. So $50 later, and I have 2 kids, but the benefits are just very good. You also get access to all the on-base amenities. So everything from, we used to have a bowling alley, movie theaters. They have very cheap movies. Sometimes they have free movies, golf course. There's a rifle range, gym facilities, pools, everything except the commissary, which is where you do like the grocery shopping. But you can access anything else that you wish, including daycare, which daycare is significantly cheaper on base than it is off. There's also a 2-tier retirement plan. So we have our TSP, our thrift savings plan, that is very similar to a 401k. And then you also have a system very similar to like a pension back in the old days. You can also become members of Navy Federal or Marine Federal credit unions and get really good benefits from them. So actually, when we shopped around, Navy Fed had the best options for getting a loan for our house. And I think even for some of our cars, it's been really low APR compared to some of the traditional banks. Flexible work schedule is definitely a benefit. So when we were in the office, people had schedules that they stuck to a little bit more traditionally. Now that a lot of people are teleworking, it's definitely different. But you really selected your start time between 6:30 and 8 o'clock. And you picked the schedule that you were on. So a lot of people are on a traditional schedule, Monday through Friday. A lot of people do pretty early hours. So like 6:30 to 3 is a common work schedule from Monday through Friday. But people do 5-4-9s where they work 9-hour days, Monday through Thursday. And then every other Friday, they either work 8 hours or they have off. And you can choose the day that you have off. So some people do every other Mondays. Some people will even do 4-10s. So they'll work Monday through Thursday and have every Friday off. And you can change that. So some people during the summer work one schedule so they have more time off, and then in the winter work a different one, or change so that they're not driving to work in the dark. Like I said, it has changed a little bit with COVID and a lot of people teleworking. Great travel opportunities. So Eric got to talk a little bit about some of those. The opportunities are definitely there. What I've found is if you want to travel in your career, you will have the opportunity to do so. There are typically always reasons to go overseas and support our customers. We also fund either an online master's program, or, I mean, you can also do FE. It's not an or type option. The master's degree, typically you do a traditional non-thesis master's where you're going to take 10 3-credit hour courses. Most of the time people do like 1 course per semester, maybe 1 per summer session. So it can take you a few years to do it, but NAVAIR is reimbursing you for it. There is a community college campus right outside our front gates that is partnered with NC State. So for undergraduate, they can actually go to that college and get a 4-year degree from NC State and never actually go to Raleigh. But all that means for a master's degree is they can offer a lot of support, whether it might be proctoring or some sort of counseling. I mean, it is an NC State campus, a satellite campus right outside our gate. So it's definitely something that a lot of people take advantage of. All right, and so the pay, if you go to this link or if you just Google general series schedule, it talks about all of our pay. We are in the rest of US COLA, which is cost of living adjustment. So make sure you're looking at what that would be as well. These pay tables get reassessed every year. So this beginning of this year, we received a pay raise. I can't remember, it was 1 to 3% usually, just to adjust for the increase in cost of living.
or something.
Perfect. It seems like so long ago at this point. So we do offer interns and full-time. So the interns come in based off of their years of experience. And Eric can definitely talk a little bit more about that coming in as an intern. And then same thing, full-time, you're assessed based off of your GPA. So anything above a 295, you come in as a GS7 step 10. Anything below that, it's a GS5 step 10. That used to be about 45,000 and 55,000. It might have gone up slightly because of the cost of living, but the best thing to do is reference those tables. We can offer an accelerated promotion. So after your first 6 months, if your performance is doing great, you'll get a promotion. So Eric has walked out here what that promotion would look like. Then it's a promotion every year after that until you get to a GS12. GS12 is what we consider our working level engineer. So what you can look at here is, compared to private industry, we don't always offer the highest starting salary. I'll be completely honest. But with our benefits packages and the promotion potential, basically in 2.5 years, if your GPA is over a 295, you're getting to be a working level engineer, and the GS12 salaries start at like 76,000. So you very quickly are getting up to a very good salary. And as I mentioned, cost of living is very low. So you can live a very nice life out here on that salary. Anything above a GS12, you compete for. So at that point, you put your resume in and you compete for GS13 to 15, or a lot of people stay at a 12 and just progress each year. So even once you get to the 12, for the first few steps, you're going to get a promotion every year, and then it's every 2 years from there.
So we're going to talk a little bit about how we've been handling COVID at NAVAIR. So since I'm part of an FST and we rely mainly on the fleet contacting us, since they're not actually located, at our bases, we've been doing maximum telework in March. So starting in March, it was like mid-March, no one from my team was allowed in the office. Everyone just started teleworking. For my team, even the new hires, we've since relaxed a little bit, so we're back to 1/3 capacity. I'm a team of 6, so we're allowed 2 people in our office. But my team personally decided not to really partake. Sometimes our new hire will come with the team lead just so we can get some of that experience. But the rest of us don't really bother. But it all depends on what team you're on. Some teams have been coming in full on. Some teams have been doing maybe 50% capacity and taking the seats from like my team that aren't coming in. And for you guys, if you were to come in as interns and new hires, it will also vary. So the new hire on my team started teleworking immediately. The new hires on my roommates' teams, they came in for 2 months. They made 2 of the engineers come in for 2 months to train them. And then after that, they all started teleworking again.
So in our side, the maintenance, repair, and overhaul department, we started back in the office full-time at the end of May. And so we're sort of on an opposite schedule. We're in the office 4 days a week, and then everyone has 1 day a week of telework. They can telework more than that, but that's just their normal schedule. And that's really because our production shops are at Cherry Point. So as Eric said, if you're doing fleet support and your fleet's not there at Cherry Point, there's really no real reason keeping you there besides development, camaraderie, or if you have to do like an engine teardown or something that you need to be in the office. So otherwise, fleet support really can be accomplished via telework because of just the nature of our jobs in MRO, we really need to be there supporting the customers. And so far, it's actually worked out really well. Knock on wood, there hasn't been a COVID outbreak. We have people that might test positive, and we do isolation, and there's a lot of things that we have in place. We have mask policies and social distancing. So in general, I think people have found it to be safe and accommodating. People seem like they enjoy to be in the office, and if they have a concern, we're addressing those on case-by-case basis. But so far, it's worked out really well.
So on to talking about internships. Like I said, I used to be an intern myself. We have two different programs. One is primarily just summer internships, and one is where you're actually going to be working during the school year as a part-time. They both can eventually lead to full-time employment. You know, the whole idea of the internship is to train young engineers to then become full-time. So Pathways is our first program. That's the one I did. It's the less competitive one. We hire more of them. That's the summer-only internship. And in that case, you're hired on as a government employee. And you actually get full benefits from that. So as an intern, I got the days off. I got sick leave. I actually started saving up for retirement. If I wasn't on my parents' health insurance, I could have applied for my own health insurance. Stuff like that. You can get your own. You can open the Navy Federal bank account, the Marine Federal, so on and so forth. Then the SMART scholarship, you actually apply for separately through this website here. You'll be hired on as a contractor, and both of these internships are common. So like NAVC does it, NASA also does both programs. So you can find those on like USA Jobs or in this website here. But as a SMART intern, you don't get the full benefits of a government employee, but they will pay for your school. So if and this is both either undergrad or graduate school, but because of that, it's a lot more competitive to get. I think Carissa, you applied for that, right?
Yeah, I'm a SMART intern or SMART scholar for NAVC at Dahlgren. So, but I actually did an interview with Cherry Point, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And so, being an intern, we place on a team. You start working with them, trying to learn as much as you can. When I came back full time, I went back to the same team I interned at, which actually kind of put me ahead. So once I started, I was able to get going pretty quickly. In fact, it was I think my fourth day there, maybe third day. My team lead started trying to give me work to do. I was like, Tom, I don't even have a computer yet. You gotta wait. You gotta wait till tomorrow, I think, or I'll look at some drawings and stuff. There's nothing I can do right now. So having the internship is definitely a good help. And you don't have to go back to the same team. When I came back full time, they gave me the option, like, hey, if you didn't like your team from your internship, or if you just want to try something new, you can do it as like a mini rotation and go back to something else. So moving on to JET, Christine.
Yeah, so the Joint Engineering Training Team or Engineer Scientist Development Program are our entry-level developmental programs for engineers. So all engineers go into ESDP, and aeromechanicals go into JET for the first part of it. Our materials engineers and some of the other areas like chemical only go into ESDP. So for this audience, you can think about it as sort of a two-tier program. So JET is typically the first 18 to 24 months of your career, and then you're in ESDP until you get to your GS-12. So that might be 2.5 years, it could be 3.5, depending on your grade level coming in. And I should mention, if you come in with a master's, which is also an option, you start as a GS-9. Basic point of JET is to get you up to speed. As Eric kind of alluded in his brief about vibes and some of the specifics with H60 drives, you go to college, you get a great education, and then you start a career, and you're not going to know everything. And we don't expect you to know everything, whether it's because you're a mechanical and you're not that knowledgeable about all the different aircraft and maybe some of the more aero-specific things, or if you're, even aero, and we want you to do vibes analysis and you never took that class. So we fully anticipate you're going to come to us not knowing everything. So JET is that way to bridge the gap between college and getting you to the working level engineer. There are requirements for you to shadow some of our senior leaders. You have to have peer and senior mentors throughout the program. You write reports, developmental reports that basically form your resume. So throughout your development, you get to sit down with your supervisor, sit down with your team lead, and get feedback on how you're performing. And they review your developmental report and basically form your resume. So if you do want to compete for GS13 above positions, you're getting feedback along the way. There is leadership training as well as technical training that you accomplish, and you do a rotation. It can be something completely different. It can be something within your team, and it's usually a negotiation between you and your supervisor. And it's in an effort to make you the best engineer that you can be. You also go on different trips. So sometimes we go into our squadron or the eye level that we were talking about earlier. So it's a very well-rounded program. And again, it's just trying to bridge the gap. There's also a social aspect to it. And I think Eric's going to talk a little bit more about that next.
So under JET, we have a bunch of other, kind of smaller groups. So we have the PDC, the Professional Development Council. You fall under that for, I believe, your first 1 to 5 years. So it does extend a little bit past JET. But basically, their whole idea is to try to make you, better at your job, better at, connecting with coworkers, trying to make sure you fit in with our community. And so they have a little bit of subcommittees under it. So we have the Work Development Council, the WDC. That's where they do more of the, trying to work on your professional skills, professional knowledge. They've done like mixtures before where, you try to, in a professional setting, try to meet up with other, coworkers, figure out what they do. We have the COC, or the Community Outreach Committee, which I'm part of. We do a lot of volunteer work. We do outreach, local middle schoolers, high schoolers. We'll do some recruitment. Last year, we got to do a beach cleanup, which was, a lot of fun. This year, we were supposed to do a Habitat for Humanity build with a bunch of the Jets. Sadly, because of COVID, we didn't get to do that. But, as we hopefully start getting back to normal, we'll start picking some of that up. And we have the Morale Recreational Networking Committee, or MRN. So they'll do, we'll do trips to Raleigh to go to see a game. Maybe we'll go see the Hurricanes, maybe a football game, basketball game. We'll do social events, just go grab some beers at one of the local breweries. I think last October, they did a pumpkin carving event at a brewery. So you just got beer and some knives, which maybe isn't a great combination, but just carve some pumpkins and just chat with your friends. So that was a lot of fun.
So the important part, how to apply. So this link here is for Yellow, which is our HR site, and it allows you to create a profile with NAVAIR. You can select sites that you might be interested in. So again, focus on the location you're trying to apply for. So Cherry Point's the closest, but if you do want to specialize in F-18, then you might want to go to North Island or San Diego. If you have no preference, you can document that as well. But it's a library for candidates and resumes, and hiring managers do go through there. So like last week, I was looking for a particular candidate, so I scanned Yellow to see if there was someone. You can upload cover letters, resumes, and it's searchable. So I can go in there and search for someone who has X experience. You can also just send your resumes directly. So Eric and I have included our resumes here. If you get your resume to either one of us, we'll make sure that it gets to the right people. And that's for internships or full-time. The SMART Scholarship, you have to apply separately through them. And I think the cycle is starting now because we'll grade SMART Scholarship applications at the beginning of the year. So there is still time.
It's typically due December 1st, by the way, for those who are interested.
Yes, thank you. And it is such a great program. So congratulations, Carissa, for getting in. But if anyone has questions, I really urge you to apply and ask Carissa for help on the application. And from the reviewer's perspective, as long as you have a solid reason for why you want to support the DoD, do your research and really develop your narrative, that can really set you apart from other candidates. And like we said, it's a great program. I mean, depending on where you are in school, that could be, $50,000 that they're investing in you. And all you're doing is paying back your time in service. So it's really benefiting you too because you're getting a job, but can't speak highly enough about the SMART program. So I was monitoring the chat. I didn't see any questions. Now that we've completed, does anyone have anything?
I guess I have a super quick question. When it comes to like those of you who are, doing a lot of work like hands-on, how is that work going? Like how is it changing with COVID over the last few months?
It's changed quite a lot. There's a lot more scheduling involved. So specifically for my aircraft, we Cherry Point actually isn't the depot facility for H-60s. Our contract with Sikorsky says that they are actually our depot level, not us. So there's a lot of specialty tools we don't have. We have to create shop codes and John's job order numbers to pay artisans from other platforms to help us. But luckily, we're good friends with the 53 guys and the H1 guys, and so their artisans, kind of help us out. But normally we just kind of sneak in and try to squeeze in between their schedules. But now with COVID, we have to try to, contact them ahead of time, schedule time for us to be there. Of course, always make sure you're wearing your masks and whatnot. And with everyone not in the office, you have to coordinate, make sure everyone's going to be there at the same time and meet up. So that's been a little bit more difficult.
Interesting.
I think for us, since we're in the office, it really hasn't changed all that much. Really, the requirement to wear a mask is probably what's changed. And then having everybody on once a week for telework, you just have to be more flexible. Some people are on different schedules where they're working later hours. Probably the biggest impact is some of our schools are 100% virtual. So you'll have people who have school-age children on just very odd schedules, alternating with their wives. They might stay home a couple days and help the kids with the virtual schooling and then be in the office longer hours. So it's just more coordination.
Yeah. I'm still a little bit in that college kid mentality. So sometimes I stay up really late. So actually, very near the beginning of quarantine, when they actually shut down the beaches, I would occasionally just take an hour or two off work midday, just take like a really long lunch, go out for a run in the park or something, just to get out of the house, clear my head before it got dark. And then I'd end up working at like 10 or 11 at night, just making up those hours from earlier. We were allowed to kind of flex more like that, but it does make working with your team a little bit harder as people do that.
Wow.
Oh, here's a question. Can you talk about hands-on versus desk work during normal operations? What do you do or like more if you have a preference?
All right. Well, I like that we have a healthy mix of it. So I do have, there's, a little bit now that we're in COVID, we are kind of leaning more towards just regular desk work. But during regular operations, we get a pretty healthy mix. So in my very first slides, I showed the pictures of me climbing on top of a H-60. There are days we just got to get out there and do some stuff or tear something apart or just go to your parts room.
Oh, you're good.
Hold something.
Yeah, you're good. Wipe it off right quick. Yep.
Yeah, so I think a good mix is fine. There are some days in the summer just crazy hot and you're out back just trying to, hammer off some corroded on nut or something. So sometimes you enjoy, getting back to your desk and having the AC. So I think a healthy mix is always good.
Yeah, it also keeps it so that you don't necessarily know what you're going to do that day. Like most engineers, we'll come into the office and we have a list of a to-do and what we think we're going to accomplish that day. And then you get a call from the fleet or you get a call from an artisan and it's whatever. They can't start the aircraft or they can't get X component apart and your entire day has just been transformed and now you're supporting the customer. So that whole to-do list that you put together is completely shot. So for engineering, that can be challenging because our personalities, we sometimes want to be very specific, but I think it's really good. It challenges us and it keeps us on our toes. And you literally do not know what is going, like when you go into the office, it could be anything happening, or like Eric said, you could just be at your desk kind of cleaning up, tasking. So the versatility really keeps people enjoying what we do.
The one downside is you got to keep spare clothes. I keep, spare pants, spare shirt, some boots at my desk at all times. Because sometimes I want to wear my nice clothes to work. I want to put on some nice penny loafers or something. And then like, hey man, we got to go climb on something. You got to throw some non-nice shoes on. So you got to be prepared for that sometimes. Anyone else? Or yes.
I'll go back to the slide. Yeah, I'll also type them in the chat.
Yeah, so it wouldn't let me copy and paste while presenting.
Eric, make sure I got that right.
Yep. It's only one letter off from my NCSU emails. Sometimes even I get them mixed up.
So yeah, absolutely. You can shoot us emails and just include your resume. Yes, Hannah, we can do that.
So I had a somewhat random question, but I go on vacation like around Wilmington a lot, and sometimes I always every time I'm down there at the beach, like at Wrightsville, I always see like military aircraft fly over. Are those from the NAVAIR base? Or are they from
Probably
somewhere else?
those are probably New River.
Okay.
Down in Jacksonville, we have a Marine base, so they got H-1s, H-53s. Can't remember if the V-22s are there or not.
V-22. It's about an hour from Cherry Point.
Okay.
So North Carolina is a very military-friendly state. There's a lot of bases. But yeah, if it's out near Wilmington, it's probably from New River.
Okay.
Fun fact, you can actually see the V-22s from the Outer Banks too. So
I've got some great videos of me just chilling at the beach, just Harriers or V-22s just flying by. Sometimes they go a little close to the water, just putting on a little show.
especially if you're like up at the northern part of the Outer Banks, you get like, New River and the Navy bases that are in like Virginia Beach and Hampton and that area. So you get a lot of really neat aircraft going through.
Don't talk to the pilots, though. They'll try to spook you. They'll tell you about all the sharks they can see in the water while they fly. I don't know how much they're bluffing.
I also had a question about telework. So as a lot of companies and the DoD and stuff move to telework, do you think there are opportunities for telework even if things go back to close to normal or any kind of normal? Do you think they'll have more opportunities work from home than before COVID?
I'll jump on that. It very much depends on your team, kind of like how even me and Christine telework differently now. But my team specifically, our captain has already told us that we will never be returning to full-time 100% in office again. So we will probably be teleworking in some capacity for a while. And we're even entertaining the idea of allowing more of our engineers to telework from outside of Cherry Point. Now that might be my team specifically because we don't have H-60s at our base. So some people have brought up the idea of allowing us to telework from San Diego because we actually have H-60 squadrons in San Diego. So they might start moving more of our FST out there since we're just starting to telework more anyways.
And they've had a lot of surveys on the people who are doing telework full time, and they've actually been more productive in the telework environment than they were in the office. So I think to a certain extent, yes, a lot of teams are going to maintain telework. We always could telework, but it was more situationally. So if you had a doctor's appointment at 8 o'clock and you wanted to telework for the first part of your day, or if your AC was getting fixed or something and you wanted to telework. So it was more just on a case-by-case basis, but this full-time telework is definitely new, but they found that there are a lot of benefits from it, so they're going to maintain it in a lot of areas.
They're trying to accommodate for it as well. My team has put in an order for mics and webcams. So for security reasons, our work laptops don't have mics or webcams built into them. Don't even have Bluetooth. So they're trying to buy us that separately to plug in so we can have more video meetings so that we're not having to use our personal devices.
And they're right now rolling out Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams, which is really useful. So there's a lot that they're changing to try and adapt and make it so that people can telework and still be efficient. So it's been very helpful.
Thank you. That's why I asked, because it seemed like it's like we're almost like in an ongoing experiment where we're just seeing like how much more efficient things can be if people are working from home. So I was just curious of that.
Yeah, and a lot of people are happier working at home and running a load of laundry in the middle of their day, or like Eric said, taking a break and just going for a walk or playing with their dog. Like people are just happier in that environment. So in a lot of cases, it makes sense.
I'll say my lunch game has gone up since I've been at home. I can just take maybe 5 extra minutes and cook myself something pretty nice. I made mac and cheese the other day, but I did it up. I added some breadcrumbs. I put it in the oven, so it wasn't just some basic craft. It was a little bit fancier. So that's pretty nice. Stuff you can't normally do in the office.
Yeah, as opposed to like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
That, or we go to some of the restaurants in Moorhead. Now that we're a lot closer. Normally I wouldn't drive out to Atlantic Beach to get Shark Shack during work. It would be a full hour, there and back, but now I can.
All right. Well, if you guys have any other questions, you can stick around afterwards. But thank you, both Christine and Eric, for coming to speak to us, even though we're virtual. It's definitely always good to hear from you guys. So thanks.
Yeah, it's always good
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.